Peterborough. Well, 05 lives on. This time I'm at the wheel of a Holden Jackaroo, and we're taking on the outback of Australia in the 1998 PlayStation Rally around Australia. Now these events are something else again. They are rough, there's dust everywhere, you never know what's around the next corner. It's really a battle against the elements, a great challenge in life. So hang on as we take you for a gut-wrenching ride around Australia in the quickest time you could ever imagine.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
59 cars roared out of the city of churches, the drivers praying the cars got back to Adelaide in one piece. A big crowd lined the streets in the heart of the city to see us off. Next to me was Wayne Webster, motoring writer for Sydney's Daily Telegraph newspaper, a bloke I've known for 20-odd years. He was straight on the job. It would have been pretty embarrassing to have got lost in Adelaide. The trip to Port Augusta is normally 326 kilometres, but with 4 special stages along the way, our odometer would click over an extra 100 k's. That made it a relatively easy first day, and a good way to start PlayStation Round Australia Rally 98. The first competitive stage, or special stage as officials like to call them, was aptly called First Blood. Thankfully we didn't lose any. It was a typical rally stage on good shire roads through rolling farmland. Some nice views from the plateau, but I had to concentrate on the off-camber corners and numerous creek crossings. The second stage for the day was another short one, just 24 kilometres, but this one had some real rough stuff. With a fair degree of slippery ground, I made sure we got through unscathed. Mind you, I didn't back off too much, it was still a race. We headed north to Jamestown for our first service stop and the first bit of drama. My Holden Jackaroo teammate Bruce Garland almost backed over one of our mechanics. From Jamestown we hit the dirt around the southern Flinders Ranges in an area probably called the top of the world. Experienced rally driver Michael Guest was flying in the Subaru Impreza WRX. The special stages are held in remote areas, but we're still racing on public roads, so all access to the course needs to be blocked off. This is quite often done by local motorsport club members.
We offered our services to Port Augusta Vehicle Restorers Club, and we were taken up on it, so it's a nice way to spend a Sunday.
What do you actually have to do? I mean,
all we're required to do is to stop vehicles passing this point so they don't enter onto the actual closed circuit for the race.
The PlayStation Rally has 2 types of competitors. Those who race, pushing the car and themselves to the limit, and those who are on an adventure, happy simply to get their car around the course, which I might say is no mean feat in itself. There are also different types of vehicles, 4-wheel drives like my Holden Jackaroo, race-bred rally cars like Michael Guest's Subaru, all sorts of standard cars, and some not so standard. There's even an historical section. 6.5 hours after we left Adelaide, we pulled into Port Augusta, and the mechanics swarmed over the cars like bees. They have to work quickly because there is a deadline for race vehicles to be locked up at night.
It's got a little pinhole in the CV boot that connects the CV joint, so we're just going to fill it up with sticker flex.
and this is like normal maintenance, or?
Yeah, I'll say a little rocks hit it, that's all. Nothing to be major, nothing major.
Bruce Garland's 4-wheel drive was given a once-over. I resisted the temptation to ask if he was installing a bigger fuel tank after we ran out of juice.
Well, we weren't going too bad, and we stopped for lunch and we had a lamb and pepper gravy, and after that we got a bit fired up, but we've been firing up. We ran out of fuel on the transport into Port Augusta, and we had to stop Peter. We normally help Peter because he's got no mechanical ability and his navigator's got even less. And we had to borrow some fuel out of his car to get us here. It was a bit embarrassing, but...
Now I hear there's a pretty severe penalty for running out of fuel.
Oh yeah, there's going to be a severe penalty, very severe. I think it's about a 2-carton penalty.
Day 2 started with breakfast in the Port Augusta Footy Club rooms at 4 in the morning. One of the drawbacks of being up the front end of the competition is you have to get up earlier. So with a few googie eggs and a bit of toast being wolfed down, I left just behind Michael Guest for the first big day of rallying. Before we could get down and dirty, there was a short 86-kilometre transport stage, and along the way we passed Iron Knob, which, by the way, is an iron ore heap. We're heading west to some pretty remote country. This old sign made sure we didn't forget it. Not too far down the air highway is Kimber, a small town exactly halfway across the east and west coast, and also home of the Big Galah. In fact, it seemed like everything around Kimber was pretty big. Nearby rally competitive stage was an 89-kilometre high-speed blast along what was generally smooth, wide station roads with some really murky bits thrown in. Ross Nicastri in the Parts Plus Jackaroo was first out of the dust. Guesty was second, then my 05 Jackaroo, and teammate Bruce Garland right behind me in another Jackaroo. The time clock never stops ticking, and even our service stops are a race to make sure we get to the next rally stage on time. There are time penalties for being late, even on transport sections.
Down on the driver's side about 20 mil.
Okay.
How much fuel do we need in, Steve?
They've actually designated the servos there in the book.
Now remember I mentioned earlier, there are all types of cars? Well, what about these guys in the Mini? Doug Coote and Con Onofaro. They feel every bone and jarring bump. Unfortunately, they broke down on the first day, and a little Mini needed more work early on day 2.
Yeah, we came to a bit of grief yesterday on the third special stage, the last stage for the day, which was the first day yesterday. We bottomed out and lost the sump and basically lost oil pressure because we didn't have any more oil in the engine.
Yeah, we had to retire last night and pull the engine out and replace a gearbox that we found in Port Augusta. And we're going to make park for May tonight and rejoin the special stages tomorrow.
We pretty much worked all of last night. We finished at 7 o'clock this morning, jumped in the car, filled up with fuel, grabbed a bite to eat, and we've been driving ever since.
We're both without sleep at the moment.
Michael Guest whacked the bull bar in that last stage, and his mechanics gave the car a good going over. Bruce saw the incident and played up to the camera by telling the clerk of course, Bob Carpenter, what happened.
So Guesty and the other Jacker and Roscoe, they've got the green grass and there's a right-hand turn, right? Straight over, about from here to the police car eye, there's 2 big conservation banks, and both you can see the wheel marks go over and straight into the next one. Guesty's bent all the bull bar. So they all add up. They're credits.
They're not safari drivers.
Not yet, no. Your body of the car's got so many credits. They've misused a few of them up.
Yeah, good work.
Well, the rally's starting to settle down a bit now. We've had our first run into Port Augusta and now into Pachira. People might have complained in 1995 there wasn't enough special stages. Well, that's changed, I can tell you, because we've had a couple of long, hard ones right now as we sort of approach the Nullarbor Plains. Michael Guest took off very fast, like a startled rabbit, really, but he sort of came back a little bit to the field, I guess, during that last special stage. I didn't quite catch him, but I probably caught him a bit. One of the other Jackaroo boys caught me up. I'm sort of feeling I'm in a standard car. Maybe I better start looking at getting to the finishing line, but it's very tempting out there because it's the cars are good and it's beautiful terrain. Now we come to the part of Australia where it's dead straight as an arrow, right across that Nullarbor Plain. But we're not taking the tourist route. We're going off-road and we're going out and about amongst all those rocks and boulders and what have you. And there's going to be a lot of action between now and our next stop. And our next stop was Yalata via Ceduna, a distance of 380 kilometres to be covered in 3 hours 55 minutes. Speeding is of course outlawed, and competitors don't just have to worry about being caught by the police. PlayStation rally marshals also pop up at random to check our speed. Race organisers allow enough time to stick to the speed limit, but make one wrong turn and you're in danger of copping a time penalty. The urgency makes it hard to stop and enjoy the sights. The seaside hamlet of Ceduna looked inviting, but the race had to press on. The last competitive stage on day 2 was supposed to be along the old air highway, a reminder of round Australia trials from the 50s and 60s when there was no bitumen road across the Nullarbor. Unfortunately, the stage had to be cancelled when the deal to close the road through an Aboriginal settlement came undone. This four-wheel drive was going against the traffic, but we found out later there was an Aboriginal funeral going on, and out of respect for that activity, we decided not to go ahead.
They wouldn't take the instructions from the officials, so there's no way that I could risk the safety of the competitors, so I had no alternative but to cancel the section, unfortunately.
And what's the word been from the drivers, Bob, about the tour so far?
Well, one guy said yesterday when he came in last night, he said, if I don't go another inch, I've had me $5,000 worth already. He said it's the best value for money I've ever had.
So that's a ringing endorsement, isn't it?
Yeah, they've had a ball. They really have. I haven't had one single complaint about anything, and they're all very happy about the way that the event's being run, the effectiveness of the controls and all that sort of thing, and they're having a wonderful time. Yeah.
And what do you expect? Because you've been around this, of course. I mean, what have we got to look forward to?
Well, it's a bit of everything from here on. Tomorrow, the first stage tomorrow is a beauty. It's 207 kilometres across the old coach road, and that's the first graded road that ever went across the Nullarbor. And there hadn't been too much traffic on it for the last 28 to 30 years, and it's pretty tough in places. It's a bit of a navigator's nightmare in places as well, but it'll try them out.
Even though there's now a sealed road right around Australia, the PlayStation Rally 98 is still a real endurance event. Mind you, it's nothing compared to what this lady is taking on. She literally popped out in the pitch black of night and in the middle of nowhere walked across the Nullarbor with a cart tied behind her waist.
This is the first country in about 50. I'm walking around the world. I started in Cape Leeuwin here in Western Australia. Oops, I'm in South Australia now.
You've crossed the border?
Yep, I've crossed the border a couple of days ago. And I'll be walking clear around the world. I'll end in San Diego, where I'm from.
Why?
I just woke up in the night and knew I was going to do it. I'm a survivor of cancer. I've been ill most of my life and not athletic at all. I survived, my children left home, and I fell off a mountain in Nepal. They said I'd never walk again. I'm building bridges between cultures with my website. I have people in about 40 countries emailing me and communicating.
That's a huge lift to keep you going, I guess, is it?
It is. People ask, aren't I lonely? Like you, I never know who's going to stop, who's going to visit me during the day. One man stopped and whipped out wine and oysters from Streaky Bay.
Isn't that great? And how long do you think this will all take?
About 13 years.
Really? 13 years?
Well, at the rate I've been going, it may take about 50 years. It's not a race. I meet people all the time that streak past me. It's not a race at all.
Well, it's a fair way up that direction. Where are you heading to now?
I just sleep on the side of the road. I have all my camping equipment with me. I document it all with my 35mm camera and my digital camera.
And you're not frightened at all? I mean, it's a pretty scary place out here at night, isn't it?
No, not at all. The truckies watch out for me. I've got a flag here, and if I go off the road, either at someone's ranch or to look at the sights, I leave my flag stuck in the ground. If the truckies don't see it and they think I should be someplace, they call the police.
So they all know, do they?
Yeah. I've been out here for 2 months. I left Norseman about 2 months ago. The truckies have all met me. I stay at the roadhouses 3-4 days, get to know everybody. There's small little islands of community.
With more than 200 people travelling with the PlayStation Tour, there wasn't enough accommodation in Eucla, so those who stayed at Border Village had a quarantine inspection to go through at 4 a.m. All drivers met up for breakfast in Eucla. The talk of the tables was the long trip to Esperance and the first competitive stage already being dubbed the Car Killer. Well, here we are at Eucla, very early in the morning, about 5:25. Michael Guest here, humming away in the foreground, just sort of ready to go out. What happens today is we drive about 1 kilometre down the road and we head into the bush and we do 215 kilometres or so of special stage. So, you know, you better have got a good sleep because you're going to be wide awake, I can tell you in a few minutes. The road, I guess, is going to be pretty rough. It's going to be this limestone sort of outcrop you find across the Nullarbor, little rocks sticking out. I think the drivers will be very, very careful not to puncture tyres and really wreck the suspension because it is very, very unforgiving. But we're in for a great day's rally.
This next stage is the biggest test of the whole event, 208 kilometres competitive, and I'd like to come out the other side with the quickest time, but I think it might suit the more the recreational type four-wheel drives with more clearance.
Do you have to be a little bit careful today?
Yeah, certainly. We've got a lead of about 5 minutes at the moment, and I think we've just got to pick and choose where we go quickly.
Guessed he wasn't to know it, but those words will later prove to be prophetic. The 05 Jackaroo, my navigator Wayne Webster, was celebrating turning 40, although perhaps not quite the way he would have liked.
Are we on the right time? Are you 40 yet? Are you on the right time?
Oh, mate, I'm 40 somewhere, I know.
Fantastic. Happy birthday, 50, mate. Though. Think of all the people that don't get to spend their birthday like this. I mean, just...
Yeah, lucky, aren't they?
Here he is, about to head off in the bush thinking, I think all my birthdays have come at once.
Exactly.
I want to get the 41 as well, bro.
You've planned for years to celebrate your 40th in Esperance.
Yeah, I could have had a party, really.
Exactly.
The first competitive rally stage was only just up ahead, but when you've got lots of other things to worry about, it's easy to miss a turn-off, as Cullinan did in my old Commodore. Luckily, he realised without going too far. Nicastri in the Parts Plus four-wheel drive, and Garland in his Jackaroo showed no fear, roaring down the steep rocky hill. I was trying to make up time on those two and push the car to the edge, literally. There was a 40-metre drop on the other side of that ledge and our hearts were in our mouths. This downhill section was one for the four-wheel drives for sure. The smaller cars really had a rough time of it. The end of this competitive stage went through the Mundrabilla homestead, a private property. The owners were interested onlookers as the field negotiated what is normally their farm access road. One by one the cars came through, but not all of them made it. The biggest shock was that Michael Guest's Subaru Impreza hadn't been through the checkpoint.
He's had a problem in the stage, he's hit a rock, apparently lost a wheel, and is still rolling forward, keeping the car to try and reach this control.
And why is he trying to get here then? Why doesn't he just give up?
Well, he would have the running of the time allowed to run on the stage, which may be 2 hours, plus his late time limit. So if he can get to this control in 3.5 hours from when he started this morning, well, he's still got a chance to continue.
A few hundred metres from the end of the stage, ambulance officers were treating one of the drivers. It was John Anderson from the old Peugeot. He'd rolled and broken his arm.
How you feeling?
Oh, yeah, I'm all right. Yeah, pretty good, actually. The medical team have looked after me wonderfully.
It was terrible luck for John, who put a lot of work into restoring the old pug. This is how it looked at scrutineering in Adelaide. Only the day before we saw it on the road across the Nullarbor and it was travelling beautifully. But unfortunately, this is how it ended up. Officials righted the car after he rolled it, and when he recovers, he'll have a lot of work to do. Although the area looks pretty flat where he came to grief, the red dirt is soft and dry, and what happens is the front cars cut it up and turn it into boulder so you can't see the holes in the road. The road can look perfectly smooth, but in a split second, you can drop half a metre into a deep rut. As John was taken away, the Michael Guest mystery was solved. One of the pre-race favourites and class winner of 2 rounds of the World Rally Championship was out of the PlayStation Rally. His Impreza stranded in the middle of nowhere.
The rear brake caliper has disappeared. We've got damage to the drive shaft, smashed the rear hub assembly, all of the suspension links are broken. The shock absorber is still working fine, but everything that bolts to it has sort of disappeared, so we're working to put all that back together at the moment.
And how long will that take?
It's hard to say, but things are quite mangled down in that corner, as you can imagine, so I think it'll be about an hour or so.
So it's a fair bit. You're out here in the middle of nowhere, aren't you? And it's pretty hot today.
We are in the middle of nowhere, there's no doubt. I think if you have a bit of a look around here, you can't get too much further from anywhere. I can't believe anybody even bothered to put a road in here in the first place, actually. So.
The stage lived up to what many of the drivers feared. It was a car killer. Apart from the Impreza and Peugeot, this GT Falcon didn't make it through, and the Leyland P76 had to be towed out. And this old Fairlane was ambling along at walking pace. Guest and his team got the Subaru going again, but it didn't sound too healthy, and they still had 400 kilometres to make it to Esperance. Today's first stage started along a fast and smooth sandy gravel Shire road, perfect for rallying. But it didn't last long. Only 7 kilometres into the stage, the road became a track. Once again, there was plenty of rough stuff, including a rare triple caution. No point taking risks through here, but it wasn't nearly as bad as the officials reckoned it would be. Only 2 competitive stages gave us more time to gaze at the scenery. The road through Western Australia's southern region took us through some beautiful countryside. The bright yellow fields of canola and the Stirling Ranges near Albany were simply stunning. The second special stage was a much longer one, and it went up the mountains, and it really was, well, I think it's a lot like we're going to find up in the Kimberley region. Very shaly sort of rocks, very slippery, some ball-bearing surfaces, and very, very tight. It was very, very challenging for every driver, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Our car went magnificently. The 3 Jackaroos were out in front and doing it very, very well. And then we came through beautiful countryside, almost going as far south as Albany, and then winding through the countryside to finish up here in Bunbury at this beautiful place where we're conducting this evening's festivities, service, etc. But a fairly easy day today, really, but a lot tougher to come. After 4 days, some of the cars were starting to need some major repair work. No time to book into the local mechanic, you've got to do it on the spot. One of the great things about the PlayStation Rally is that everyone helps everyone else. In Bunbury, the Petters team helped out privateer Mike Holloway.
We've actually pulled off the plate that the rear shockers mount, the top of the rear shockers mount's actually pulled away from the body, and Petter's suspension service crew are actually fixing the car for us.
What, so another crew's helping you?
That's right. In fact, Ron Petter's been really good to us. He sponsored us in the first place for shock absorbers, and when we were in trouble, he just came up to me and offered his crew and all his services just out of the blue. So it's great to do.
Peter Kimpton's GT Falcon was back in the event after a terrific gesture by XR6 Falcon driver David Stewart.
We broke a top ball joint yesterday in one of the roughest sections I've ever seen, and had to be taken out by the recovery vehicle. That's myself, not the vehicle. Rang up and down the Nullarbor for a part. We got a part, and one of the Peugeot's friends, the Peugeot rolled, and one of his friends waited with him, and he said his afternoon. He said the afternoon's gone. He said, how can I help you? So he was a contender in an XR6, and he actually waited 5 hours till I got the ball joint, drove me back in 130 k's. We put the ball joint in the dust with 2 torches at night, and came out again and arrived back this morning in Esperance at 4:45. Hour and a half sleep, drove all day, and we're here. So that's the human interest side, and that's what this is all about really for the private here. So it's really fantastic that people do that for you.
Is it a hard decision, or do you just think, well, look, you'd hate to be in that situation yourself?
There is no decision whatsoever. The mate's in strife, you're way out in the middle of nowhere, you go and help them. That's all that matters.
The overall race lead was a battle between the race-modified Jackaroos, with only 4 minutes separating Ross Nicastri and Bruce Garland, with myself and the standard Jackaroo another few minutes back. In a race around Australia, a matter of minutes is nothing. Also going well, Griffith and Garbutt in the little Toyota RAV4 and Callanan and Cooper in the VS Commodore. And there was some pretty keen racing for honours in the other classes. Not long after we left the lush pastures of WA South, we were rallying on one of the stages used for Australia's round of the World Championship held each year around Perth. Bruce Garland did very well thanks to some inside knowledge.
First stage was a good bit of Rally Australia. I'd practice on the kids' Sony PlayStation at home, so I knew all the roads and all the corners, because that's the only stage I can beat them on in the PlayStation game, the Colin McRae game. They got that stage in there.
Now, Bruce is a master at long-distance rallying. Unfortunately, he's also a master of practical jokes when you least expect it.
Oh, there's an old lady in the way. I don't want to give her a heart attack. Oh, the wind's beautiful. Oh, on the target.
You've probably heard how these roads over here, like little ball bearings, boy, oh boy, they're slippery, and you arrive at the corner and you're never too sure if it's going to stop. So I guess it really wasn't a section that did suit the Jackaroos. It was one where you need a lot of power and probably get down those straights with a bit of speed. Now the second stage was a very interesting one. Very good surface, very well compacted, and a lot of crests, a lot of yumps and things like that. Followed usually by right angle corners, which are like crossroads, turn hard left at crossroads and things like that. We actually went so airborne at one stage that honestly, we had a conversation before it landed. It was a long way in the air. There wasn't a caution on it, but we were hiking along on the Jackaroo. We managed to break a half shaft during that, which caught us out up the road a few kilometres. We came into a crossroad, went a little bit too far in there, tried to drive around, didn't realise I was only in two-wheel drive, and I got caught. I had to get a tow out. And I had to wait a long time before I could find some very kind person to tow me out. It was Reg Owens and the Nissan Patrol. Thanks, Reg. Towed me out, got me on the road. I've got 2 wheels drive at the moment, but other than that, the car's running well.
We've had a great run this morning. The roads have finally starting to suit the 2-wheel drive cars a bit more. The traditional ball bearing surface that they all rave about in Perth. I haven't driven on it before, and I was quite happy with it.
The third stage for the day was fast. Michael Guest had flown home, but his co-driver Jason Walk teamed up with Paul Pavara to keep the car on the road. They'd lost too much time to be in contention overall, but the experience for them would be invaluable, and they'd keep the rest of us honest in the competitive stages. Most of the drivers pushed their cars to the limit on this stage. Waiting for us at the end was the long arm of the law. Luckily, he was just an enthusiastic spectator, curious to know how fast we were going, about 160 k's an hour on that stretch. We pulled into Geraldton that evening and the local community gave us a great reception. Hundreds of people turned out to see the cars being worked on and talk to the drivers. For some of the teams though, there was plenty to do. In fact, some of the work needed on the leading cars was so extensive, the local Holden dealer's workshop was commandeered.
That's it. Go.
Go and start the other one. Quick, will do this. Get off the work, all right.
Well, early morning in Geraldton, starting off, one of the back markers. We had a bit of a problem yesterday with a broken half shaft and got bogged, would you believe, in a four-wheel drive, but of course it was a two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive. So they've actually worked out the starting positions on the quality of performance we performed in the last stage, and we were 27th fastest, I think. So here I am backing amongst the back markers. It's going to be a lot of fun, and Webby's going to be on the CB radio, I reckon, just calling, hey, move over, we're coming through. We hope so anyway. Cheers. 3 stages on day 6. One of these was called Spy Bases, and when we drove past these, we knew why. The facility provides satellite information for all sorts of reasons, including military applications. It was a day Dave Stewart will remember. He collided with one of the official vehicles, leaving his XR6 in pretty bad shape, and he hadn't even got into the competitive stage.
Well, it doesn't look a pretty sight, but funnily enough, it also looks as though the car's drivable.
Well, it's almost. Structurally, it's all right because the roll cage is so strong. But it's not roadworthy.
And so, if it's not roadworthy, you can't race?
No.
So that's your PlayStation 1998 over, is it?
Looks a bit that way.
That's hard to take, isn't it?
Absolutely.
See you in Geraldton. My son. I'll fix up.
Okay, guys, just stop for a sec.
Thankfully, no one was seriously hurt in the incident. The service stop in Northampton was all go. Ross Nicastri's crew had just a matter of minutes to fix a problem he had with his hotted up engine management system.
Come on, let's go. We're looking at the
Jason Walker in the WRX showed he's a hands-on driver. He was doing his own welding during the service stop. But when the pressure is on, it's not hard to forget something. The Subaru boys almost heading off without their sunglasses. The Glamp was running well until...
We've torn all the teeth off first gear, so running in second gear now for the rest of the day till we change gearboxes tonight in our 2-hour service break. But the tracks have been pretty good and fast. We've been doing up to 200 kilometres an hour along the fence lines out there, and it's great fun. I think we're nearly catching Peter there a while ago.
There was 2 sections there which were Jackaroo country, really. A lot of traps for the unwary. Long, fast roads along fence lines with bits of stump sticking out. And if the vision was impaired by, say, dust, very difficult to read. And then you might get a stony crop at a crossing all just jumping out in front of you. So all in all, been a good couple of sections, good day for us so far, so we'll wait and see how it pans out. The next stage was along the coast of Hamlin Pool, not far from the dolphin playground of Monkey Mire on Western Australia's central coast. The Hamlin Pool stage was fast and flat, but you still needed to have your wits about you. There were a couple of tricky corners thrown in to test driver and navigator. Bruce Garland didn't miss a beat, blasting through the stage. Towards the end of that stage, we went through a sheep station where it takes a week to check the fences.
This couple of stations, 230,000 acres. It's basically a sheep station. Although goat is quite productive at the moment. Goats are worth more to sell than sheep, so that's one avenue. But it's been pretty quiet out here, but just today, 120 cars or something coming through one day. Carbler's never seen that before.
How many head do you run out here?
I'm not sure. Being caretakers, we've only been a little while. I'm not sure, but there's bloody plenty out there.
When the race passes so close to a homestead, a quiet zone is enforced, meaning the cars have to slow down to about 50 kilometres per hour. Just as well anyway, because the creek crossings through Cabra are pretty rough. Like so many of the country towns, Carnarvon welcomed us with open arms. In fact, they created a mini festival around the rally which stopped there for the night.
Get your baggers, get them all, right?
Deputy Prime Minister Tim Fischer was there in full election mode.
But I'm just listening, learning and enjoying the colour of the CCG with all these vehicles on the CCG.
Yes, talking about the rally, how do you feel about it?
I think it's good. It's a disciplined rally. It's a combination not just of speed but discipline, of strategic planning, of a bit of luck. Yep. And Australia has been well served by the rallies, and the other good thing is it puts smaller places on the map.
Many of the leading teams again took the opportunity to work on their cars at the local garage, although it would take a bit of panel beating to knock Peter Lockhart's Jackaroo back into shape.
We rolled it yesterday in the second competitive stage in the forest. We came across a very rutted, sandy corner that the wheels just dug in, and we lost control, and over she went. Rolled one time and finished up on the side.
Obviously though, you can keep going?
Yeah, it's mainly cosmetic damage. The running gear is all fine. We had it pulled straight back on the wheels by one of the other crews, and we finished the stage. Lost about 15 minutes all told.
And you had to feel sorry for Ross Nicastri in the Parts Plus Jackaroo. His team were racing the clock to try and overcome major problems after a day of drama.
Definitely a day of drama. We started off this morning leading the event, and then we won the first stage this morning. Second stage, I think we were second only by a couple of seconds, so we were real happy. Then it all just fell to pieces. We got some muck through the fuel, must have got some bad fuel somewhere, and blocked the fuel filter and ran lean and burnt a piston, and we've just struggled all day. We've gone through, I think, 14 litres of oil to get here, and just kept stopping along the way, filling it up, and covered in grease and oil now. We're trying to fix her up.
And what are the boys doing now?
We're pulling the piston out. We haven't been able to get a piston. We've rung all over Australia trying to get one air freighted in tonight, and we can't get one. So there's a guy here, engineering shop in town, is going to weld it up for us and machine a new groove in it, and we'll try and put it back in and get it going for the morning.
You know you're in for a long day when you've already travelled 150 k's and you pass a sign telling you there's more than 700 clicks to go.
Thanks for that. Hits and Memories running out west. Good morning. Here's Richard Clapton and his Capricorn Dancer.
Down to the sand, underneath 1,000 miles of sky.
It didn't feel like the tropical zone. It was hot and dry in the north of Western Australia.
So many different sounds. It cleared my head and eased my worried mind. Capricorn dancer, riding to shelter, show me a sign, lead me on to the tropical zone.
Then it was up to the Hamersley Ranges, where we raced on mining access roads at the Road River Mine that were rocky with off-camber corners and crests. They could really catch you out. After the stage, there was another 324 kilometres to Port Hedland, where we got a terrific turnout. A local rock band even went to the trouble of putting on a concert.
Oh, what's driving rain? And I ain't missing not a single damn thing. Don't pay, stick pin. When I step out, I'm rolling through your hair. Every girl's crazy about his sharp dressed man. There was no time to spare in the first service stop as both cars and drivers guzzled down some fluids. It was hot work, and this exploded gas bottle was a reminder of how hot it gets in WA's far north.
You got water? This was a good stage, that one. Nice and warm, sandy, everyone getting lost.
Okay, now we need some petrol. Have you guys got your petrol in a jerry can? Jerry can? Jerry can, let's chuck it in.
Put the hood again for me, please.
Shit out of the radiator.
How much is going in there?
How much service you put in? 270 kg fuel. 370 kg.
You had your helmet on? When's the next competitor? It's only a few kilometres, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like 6 from here.
Okay, let's go. Off we went to Anna Plain Station. The 76-kilometre stage went past a concrete rocket launch pad used by the Navy for ground-to-air testing. The road has dug itself deep into the sand over the years, creating a walled effect. That made it impossible to overtake until it left the coast and opened up to the flat, dusty plains. The PlayStation Round Australia Rally didn't actually go to Derby. After a refuelling stop at the Willare Roadhouse, we headed for the RAAF base, 30 kilometres inland from Derby Township. Another early start and a lot of road to cover. The first 111-kilometre stage was again raced along roads that form part of the old Radex Trail. One interesting sight was the tree growing through the bonnet of this old Chevy. Bob Carpenter, the clerk of course, did a lot of work to ensure the competitive stages had a bit of everything. And we didn't have to wait long on this particular bit of road. The creek crossing wasn't too much of a drama for the four-wheel drives, but the drivers in some of the older sedans had to be pretty cautious. All three stages went through Aboriginal land, and the elders were very cooperative in allowing the PlayStation Rally to use their tracks. The last stage was through the Bow River Cattle Station, and initially the roads were considered too rough. Well, not for our jackaroos. However, tribal elder Timmy Timms arranged for them to be graded, a tremendous gesture. Well, it's the finish of day 9 in the PlayStation Round Australia Rally, and We're really in some hot country nowadays. In fact, as we speak, it's 40 in the shade. We've just finished some very, very difficult sections back there. I wouldn't like to be back in the field too much, a lot of dust. And washaways, they tear the front suspension out of your car. We've been having a very, very good run so far, so we're very happy. We're probably a bit ahead of the field, and from here on in, we'll just sort of cruise up the highway into Kununurra, but there's a definite pattern starting to take place now in the rally. The transport stage to Kununurra took us past the world's largest diamond mine, Argyle. Like Argyle, it's 7 times larger than Sydney Harbour and was created by damming the Ord River. Not surprisingly, Argyle diamonds are sold in Kununurra, and my life wouldn't have been worth living if I didn't come back with something for my wife Bev. Well, this is the price I have to pay for 3 weeks of just having fun. Buy Bev a gift to keep harmony in the household. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Here's my card. Kununurra is only 45 minutes from the border, so our first competitive stage was in Northern Territory, and many of the drivers will never forget it, particularly those up near the front who had a herd of cattle to contend with. Mark Griffiths in the RAV4 came to grief a bit further down the road. It was a devastating blow because up until then the RAV4 was right on the pace.
Just broke a right-hand lower trailing arm on the car. We fixed it, but it only went about 3 foot, and it's what we've used to fix it won't hold anymore. So we're only taking it slow on this stage because we've got all new arms and everything to put in Darwin tonight. Knew we had 3 bitumen stages to go, and sitting 5th outright, we were happy. But unfortunately, it's just a bit rough through here, and we must have got a big rock that's broken the arm in half. So it makes it a bit hard. It was a terrible stage too. It was dusty, and we sat 30 k's behind the safety car to start with, and we finally got past him. We could see a little bit, but one of those things.
And not far from Mark was Dave Stewart, who performed a miracle by getting that XR6 back on the road. But now he had fuel pressure problems.
Up! Got pressure to there.
The rally stopped at Timber Creek for fuel, where the local publican had a warped sense of humour. And then it was on to Darwin via Katherine and the beautiful Victoria River. It's wonderful countryside, but gee, you can feel isolated if you break down. Trevor Eastwood and David Hartley had flagged down a passing motorist going back towards Timber Creek and given him $50 to buy some transmission fluid, but they had no idea whether they'd see him again. As a precaution, they used the satellite phone on the Channel 7 four-wheel drive to let their service crew know they were stranded. It'd be late at night before those two made it into Darwin. Very early in the morning, as you can see by the darkness surrounding me. A couple of Australian Navy craft there behind me, waiting for some of those illegal fishermen, I suppose. But we're heading off for a, I suppose, into different country than we've seen before. The moment the running order is Bruce Garland out in front, myself not too far behind, Wise and the Commodore Ute lurking along very well. We have Callanan and another Commodore in 4th position. And 5th, we have another little four-wheel drive. So it's a very interesting field. We have one front, I suppose we have 2 cars that are in there, the traditional rally cars. And from here on in, I think the territory's going to slowly change back into their favour. So the question is, have we got enough gap? The first stage on day 11 was only 37 clicks, but it was tight and challenging. Dust early in the morning was always a problem. The air's still and drivers just couldn't see those rocks or those ruts. One of the leading cars was damaged in that stage. Number 51, Keith Callanan from Mackay, was running in 4th place when disaster struck.
Well, we've had a very eventful day. The first stage we got hung up on a grader rule because we couldn't see the road from the dust. Finished that stage. The second stage was a rally stage, which was fantastic, like just a beautiful piece of road. Made up plenty of time there, got a flat tyre about 2 kilometres out. Ran the rest of the stage with a flat, changed it at the end of control, and then had to make the 10 minutes into the service station for the service point. Had to sit on 220 kilometres an hour to make up the time. Fortunately, it's the Northern Territory and not Western Australia. You're allowed to do that here.
What's happened here?
It looks like we've blown a rear strut, which is our third for the event. It's just one of those things that happen, unfortunately.
And while Callanan burned rubber to make it to the next stage on time, the locals burned off the undergrowth. The flames were just north of the Gorrie airstrip, which was an important base for the Allied forces in World War II. Another place of interest along the road to Tennant Creek is Daly Waters, home of the most remote traffic light in Australia. Mind you, you might be waiting a while to see it change. They don't take life too seriously here, and the Daly's Water pub has a mind-boggling array of knickknacks. The last competitive stage of the day pushed the needle right off the dial. The boys in the WRX reckoned they were doing 210 kilometres an hour down the finishing straight, which incidentally was 19 kilometres dead straight, no bends, no ups or downs, straight as a die. One by one the leading cars came through, but where was Ross Nicastri? Then the shock news. The Parts Plus Jackaroo had blown an engine and Nicastri was out of the race.
As you know, we had a problem the other day with an engine, and we felt it was a fuel problem that caused it, and we just made a decision today with the guys that the next service we were going to start pulling the tank out, ready to have it out tonight to clean it out. We must have got a bad load of fuel somewhere, but it's expired another engine on the way through there, so she's all over.
That's hard to take, isn't it? Because you've been going so well.
It is, yeah. We've put in a big effort for the whole thing. The crew's put in a big effort, and it comes to an end that quick and sudden, yeah.
Well, it's not the course or anything, obviously, just bad luck.
No, it's just that if you got a problem like that, it'll show up on the long straights in the sun, afternoon sun when it's hot. If they run the lean, that's where they're going to do it.
And what about the event overall then? What's your opinion?
Oh, it's been fantastic. Really, really good. Except for the flies.
While Ross went home, the rally went on to Tennant Creek for a night of camping under the stars. Many of the teams do this every night, including my teammate Bruce Garland, but this was the first night everyone was staying in the same spot.
And the steaks will go on the barbecue very shortly. This is what you do when you're on the bottom. We can only go up higher. No, we're having a great time. It's the only way to go.
She probably strokes it, doesn't she? We don't want people to question your table, man. Bruce has gone home.
Because you were so late in the day.
Yeah, Tom waited for us this particular day. Yeah.
Another early start from Tennant Creek, with the leading drivers taking off in the first competitive stage before dawn. It looked like being a beautiful sunrise, but we had no time to stop and enjoy it. After another great day's competition, the PlayStation Rally crossed the border and headed for the pastoral town of Cloncurry via Mount Isa. The first stage of day 13 was the most varied of the event. It had a bit of everything, from smooth shire roads to badly rutted tracks with humps and some pretty decent creek crossings. Webby and I started the day in second place overall, 29 minutes behind Garland, but we struck trouble on the first stage. I got the car a bit sideways on this fast left-hander, thought I'd straighten it up, but just hit the right-hand side of a steel pole which formed part of a cattle grid. It's not enough just to be able to drive fast on unsealed roads. You've got to do the little things well, like open gates the right way. Have a nice day. Our next service was at Hewenden, and this little town stopped in its tracks for the rally. The kids were given the day off, workers were given time off to welcome us in, and the main street was blocked off and turned into a makeshift service area.
Everyone's put on a bit of tucker and it's quite good, yeah.
And what do you reckon most people think about the rally coming through?
Oh, I don't really know. I think it's all right. I think a bit of excitement in a small town.
What's the name of this town? I'm lost. Hewenden. Oh.
So I'm a kindy kid. I'm a kitty kid.
Are you?
Yeah.
Have you had the day off kindy today?
Yeah.
So have you come out to look at the cars?
Yeah.
And do you like them?
Yeah, all the kids are mostly all the kids are happy, but yeah.
They're happy because they got the day off school?
Yeah.
The town's gone to a bit of trouble, hasn't it?
Yeah. Something to see.
What do you reckon about the rally coming to town?
Yeah, good thing, mate, yeah, I reckon, mate.
How many gallons does that have?
10.
The rally really appreciated the effort, and we stayed twice as long as normal to say hello to as many people as possible.
05 calling car 4.
Some good old country hospitality when we got to Greenvale. The local kids washed our cars. Well, Friday the 13th was certainly a funny old day for myself and Wayne Webster. We started off first car out this morning, out from Cloncurry, a position that I don't think suits us too well because both times we started out there we've actually managed to either get lost or do something crazy in the first few minutes. Well, this morning I came around through a fast left-hander and struck a cattle grid just with the right-hand front wheel and flattened the tyre and got a flat tyre on the left-hand rear, a right-hand rear as well. So that meant delay out there, 2 spares on, no spares left, and into it. We lost a few positions, probably lost about 5 or 7 minutes. A very, very tough section getting into the next, I think it's 160 odd kilometres, that one. I noticed then that at the end of that Wise and Long in the Holden Ute, third place outright, pulled up with a pool of oil under their car. And they'd obviously hit some of the crossings that had jumped out in front of us. A lot of these were gullies coming down from small hills, and as you skirted around the edges of them, you had to go directly across gullies, a lot of them without any caution, and you hit them sometimes very, very hard. Bruce Cullen broke a drive shaft, didn't delay him, but it was because the car was airborne and, you know, his wheel spinning and whatever else he was doing out there. But he didn't lose any time. Wise Long did, we did. And then we went on to the second section, which I think was a lovely section. It was twisty, a lot of cattle in there. You had to keep your eyes open, but twisty, and you had to drive very accurately, but you were rewarded from a good driving performance. So I guess that some drivers got a bit of time back from having had a bit of a disaster early on. Greenvale was made famous by Stan Costa's song about the Three Rivers Hotel, performed by anyone who's anyone in the country music. Personally, I like John Williamson's version the best. So we had Desi West there, who was the most nonchalant, laid-back racing car driver you could ever find. Now, he did admit to me one day that as he was coming down Conrod Straight, would you like to tell him, Desi, or not?
Oh, that was before then. If it was very boring, I'd have a bit of a cigarette.
Can we actually sing, you think, Happy Birthday to Des? I mean, is that possible?
There is just one thing I'd like to say. I was sad to see Peter retired because I haven't retired yet.
I just retired prematurely, Desi, but Maureen, how about a happy birthday if we could sing along? Can we?
Not a problem. Is everybody going to join us for this happy birthday song?
Desi's been for a wild night tonight. Thank you. Bruce Garland had decided he didn't want to do anything silly and was trying to drive well within himself. And that left the door open for me to try and peg back a few precious minutes, so I pushed the 05 Jackaroo hard. And I wasn't the only one going for it. Then it was on to Cairns through the misty Atherton tablelands. After a much-needed rest day for man and machine at the Novotel Palm Cove Resort, we headed south for Mackay. Two of the competitors had to be cancelled because the torrential rain in the region had washed away a bridge, but the inclement weather couldn't hide the beauty of the coastline. Well, a long transport out of Cairns, then into some beautiful country up in the mountains, the hinterland, where the road was very, very interesting. It was sandy, turning into clay, and a real trap for old players like myself. But Bruce Garland, how'd you get on get through there, Bruce?
We actually left you the marks to follow.
But I didn't want to be. I didn't want to be out in the scrub driving around trying to find the road.
Yeah, it was pretty slippery, that red clay, wasn't it? Yeah. I hear that Webby was suffering from a hangover. He soon woke up after that kind.
Webby was very wide-eyed after about 5k. He went, uh-oh. But I think there's a few blokes behind us could be having a few moments.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. But it's a bit of a bit scary when it starts. You're turning in and the weight gets a hold of it and away she goes.
Yeah, and of course here I am, only a mere half hour, 40 minutes behind you, or whatever, trying to catch it up on one stage. Foolish move.
Yeah, exactly.
But a lot of fun.
I think it's foolish from now to the finish.
Exactly. After 7 hours of driving the highway, it was nice to get on the dirt for another competitive stage. The first half of the 40 kilometres to come was over station tracks with a few gullies and creek crossings. It was pretty fast actually, but you had to watch the road about 10k from home, which went sharp left straight over a crest. Overshoot that one, and as Bob Carpenter said in the Navigator's Road Book, your clothes will be out of fashion before you stop rolling. Yeah, it was a good stage for me because I managed to make up some time. last stage was just inland from Darwin, only 21 kilometres long, but a brilliant rally stage, fast and flowing over smooth gravel roads with lots of twisting and turning. Then all that was left was a 242-kilometre trek down the Bruce Highway along the Whitsunday coast to Mackay. From the coastline, you could see the cluster of holiday islands nestled in the Great Barrier Reef. We had a long transport stage to start the day. 3 hours of driving from Mackay to just north of Rockhampton. All that for the shortest competitive stage of the rally, just 12.86 kilometres. The organisers were obviously working on the theory it doesn't have to be long to be a lot of fun. The good gravel station access roads through the low hills were perfect for rallying. We had another short stage near Bundaberg and then a 58-kilometre bush bash through the Brewina State Forest, not far from Maryborough. That sharp right-hander proved to be a bit tricky, with more than one driver coming to grief. Even for the PlayStation Rally, this was an early start. 4 a.m. on the road for a day of 5 lightning-fast stages in the natural forest of southern Queensland. With only 5 days left, no one was holding back. Even guys like Jason Walker and the WRX, who were out of contention overall, were still throwing the car into the corners. From Brizzy, it was straight down the highway to Coffs Harbour. Just a lazy 500 k's to finish off the day. A big day of rallying on day 19. 330 kilometres of off-road racing, and we didn't know when we started, but it was also going to be one of the most challenging days. The early stages were familiar to experienced campaigners who'd driven in the Southern Cross rallies. Some of the roads were fast, flowing and smooth, others downright rugged, which needed to be driven with a great deal of care. The last stage of the day was a bone-jarring 53 kilometres just outside Taree. A tough test at the best of times, but as you can see, the rain made things even tougher. Safety officials inspect the course before giving the green light. It takes a shrewd judge to know the difference between treacherous and challenging. This hairpin bend was really interesting. Peter Lockhart looked like he was going home early, but he temporarily lost steering. It takes an enormous degree of skill to negotiate a slippery hairpin bend, particularly when approached at speed. And quite a number of the non-professional drivers did themselves proud. Mind you, there's always the exception. From Taree, we hit the highway again for a 355-kilometre transport stage to Sydney. The overnight stop for the cars was on the old Piermont Bridge, but Sydney-siders got the chance to see the cars before they were locked away outside the exhibition centre. I'd really been looking forward to this day. The trip to Albury would take us via Bathurst. We headed out through the beautiful Blue Mountains to Lithgow, where we did 3 stages back-to-back before pulling into Bathurst itself. I was overwhelmed by the reception the locals gave me, and Bruce Garland appreciated it too, because while I was signing autographs, he had some extra time to slip into his swag and catch 40 winks.
Now this isn't put on with texture. What's that, a tattoo?
There is. Stand back a little bit.
We couldn't regard you as a fanatic, could we?
Oh, not that, no.
Now tell us about your son. Interesting story there.
Jack's had his photo taken with Peter Brock every year at Bathurst since he was born. He was only three months old when he had his first photo. I've got another son that he's had his photo taken every year too.
Well, I reckon this will count, even though he's not racing this year.
Oh no, he's still a legend, doesn't matter what. Jack, what's Brocky? He's a legend. Oh, he's over there, I'm sorry.
Oh, better go and see the legend.
Busy. Thank you.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? I must admit sometimes it can be a bit embarrassing to have such fanatical supporters, but I really do appreciate it. And it was great to be able to say thank you in person to at least a few of the Mount Panorama faithful. Bathurst, what a fantastic place. You know, I raced here every year from 69 all the way through till 1997, including 97. But also I come and raced a few times at Easter time and other sort of little support races, including the big ones like the 12-hour production car race. It's a place which is a magnificent challenge for any driver. There's a certain magic about Bathurst, a certain something that doesn't exist at other circuits. I don't know whether it's the clean, fresh country air or the mountain itself, that Mount Panorama, which is a very, very imposing view as you come into town. But I think more than that, it's the character of the circuit. I mean, the circuit itself is designed to just follow the natural terrain, and also was built as cheaply as possible as a scenic drive back in the 20s and 30s. So that's what gives the racetrack its character. It's what gives the race, I think, the enormous challenge to every driver. Today, well, a bit of fun in the 05 Jackaroo around the car park area, but it's still nice to have a car on the mountain and to sort of drift down that hill through the S's one more time. And I just got the front wheels of that Jackaroo that far in the air coming through the dipper. Couldn't help myself.
You know the best thing they can do with this track? Rip all the bitumen up.
I'll be back if they make it good.
See ya.
We finished the day with a real rally driver's stage. 57 kilometres through the Bago State Forest, near the hamlet of Tumbarumba, about 150k north of Albury.
17:50:48. We went through northeast Victoria just after the floods had peaked. Many of the farms in the area were completely underwater. Fortunately for the PlayStation Rally, the first two stages were not affected. The first two competitive stages were in the midst of Ned Kelly country, raced on some fast, full-on rally roads. The second stage ended with a pulse-stopping roller coaster run down a ridge. Not the place to get a heart attack or brake failure. The trip from Albury to Horsham in Victoria's Western District went via Melbourne, 750 kilometres in all, and that gave us time for another 4 competitive stages. The Hume Highway took us from Glenrowan to Mount Disappointment, about an hour north of Melbourne. This 24-kilometre stage was anything but a disappointment. The roads were fast-flowing, smooth all-weather gravel tracks through a natural forest, and everyone took advantage. As usual, Clark of course Bob Carpenter also threw in a couple of surprises like this switchback turn. The little 1600 employed the rock and roll approach. Two stages on the last day, but by now everyone was focused on making it back into Adelaide. Particularly my co-driver Wayne Webster was shaken, but not too stirred up, after I put the Jackaroo backwards and rolled it, coming into a corner near Ballarat. After coming over a crest at considerable speed, the car finished up on its roof, backwards off a bank. We piled out and had a look. Well, we couldn't get it back on the wheels. So my teammate, Bruce Garland, came along and hooked the tow rope on, pulled it back on the wheels, but as he did so, he yanked it a bit too hard and the car kept on rolling. As it rolled, I was down the hill, the car was rolling after me. It finished up on its wheels, only a few inches really from where I was sort of sprawled out backwards down this hill. Anyway, the car came to a halt, jumped in the car, fired it up, put it back on the road, away we went. And we lost maybe 3, 4, 5 minutes. So, quite an incident. After 18,500 kilometres in just 22 days, to cross the finishing line was a tremendous achievement for all those who made it. The field crossed the finishing line in reverse order. That is, the last car home was the overall winner, Bruce Garland. Certainly, no one begrudged the backmarkers to their moment to bask in the glory of finishing such a gruelling event.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
And another one. Here we go. Down,
Car 53.
This gentleman driving this Gary Ferguson is an old station operator. Welcome back, they finished in nice to see you all.
Well, here we are back in Adelaide. I mean, for a few days we thought we were never going to make it. It was just so difficult. The event itself proved to be the toughest ever, there's no doubt about that. The most competitive, the roads were the roughest, and the cars were asked to drive the fastest of any of these Round Australia trials to date. I was delighted with the overall efforts of 05. I thought Wayne Webster did a great job, and for a standard Jackaroo we just were quite staggered at just how well that car went. But the accolades must really go to Bruce Garland and Harry Suzuki, his co-driver, but Bruce in particular, the owner-operator of Bruce Garland Automotive, who prepared both cars and serviced them and organised things throughout. To give you an idea of just how the guys went about it on a limited budget, they swagged it every night. Yeah, that's right, they slept out under the stars every night. And they're up there 3 o'clock in the morning, getting ready, getting organised, and getting our days organised so that really, from my point of view, all I had to do was concentrate on driving. So for Bruce Garland to win this event outright and to have such a major hand in second outright Jackaroo is a real feather in his cap, and I sincerely hope that life takes a new turn of events for him in the future.
It hasn't sunk in yet because I haven't woken up since this morning. We got up at some ungodly hour at 3 when they were making the breakfast for everybody, and they shuffled us out of the tent, and then we just haven't woken up since. But it's been a good event. It's been a lot tougher than the last one, heaps tougher. So it was a good test, and hopefully we'll be able to go on with that and do a bit more. Our dream is to go overseas and do some more events over there. I think we've got the runs on the board to give that a shake.